Hello Eagles Nation, Vincent Foast here, and welcome to an Eagles schedule prediction chat where we're going to be predicting the wins and losses for the upcoming 2025 Philadelphia Eagles season. But before we get into it, make sure you like and subscribe to the Eagles Chat YouTube channel, as well as following us on Instagram at Chat Eagles, where you can find daily updates on your birds. You can also find our Instagram in the description of this Eagles Chat video. But now let's get right into it, and yes, we're not wasting any time. We're going right into week one with the Eagles going up against the Dallas Cowboys. No better team to raise the Super Bowl banner in front of than the Dallas Cowboys, especially since the Cowboys have not seen a Super Bowl in years. They haven't even been to a Super Bowl in years, and now they seem to be struggling to just make it to the first round, as now they can't even make the playoffs anymore. So yeah, it just seems to be such a great thing to see as Eagles fans, and it's even better to raise that banner right in front of their face and watch the tears roll down like every single year when they get disappointed at the end of this coming season as well. But yeah, looking into it here, Eagles start off the season Thursday Night Football. They open up the NFL season, and I see them getting a win. Now, I do see this being a sloppy type of a game. And reason I think this and what I'm about to say, what I'm about to say, some people may agree with, some people may not agree with. But in my opinion, the first 5 weeks of a NFL season are some of the hardest to predict. Now, some people may be saying, well, you would think the ending portions of the season are hard to predict because you don't know what certain teams' identity is going to be. You don't know who's going to be injured, who's not going to be injured. Well, yes, I understand that, but the reason I say the first 5 weeks are hard to predict is we all know how the NFL preseason is now. Teams in the first 5 weeks are still trying to find their identity, and they usually don't have their identity yet. And when I mean we know how the NFL preseason works, well, what I mean by that is most teams, and the Eagles are included in this, don't play their starters in preseason. You usually see guys like your second stringers, your third stringers. Most NFL teams don't do this. And that's why, the first 5 weeks, in my opinion, and even Merrill Reese, the Eagles' legendary radio announcer, has said the same thing. The preseason carries into the beginning of the regular season. The first 3 weeks are still part of the preseason for these guys. That is the starters' preseason. And I mean, I can't tell you the last time Jalen Hurts has played in a preseason game. I can tell you one thing, it wasn't last season, and I'm pretty sure it wasn't the season before that, but you can correct me if I'm wrong in the comments on that one. But I mean, I do see it being a sloppy game, but I do think the Eagles will get the victory because I see the momentum carrying it. I see the energy of the crowd, the Super Bowl banner being hung up there. I think the momentum will carry the Eagles to get their victory of week one. I think there will be some sloppy plays, but I do see the Eagles coming out on top. I think it's going to be one of those weird scores where it's going to be 24-19, something like that, 24-18. And yeah, I mean, it's kind of a weird score, but I see the Eagles coming out on top to get a 1-0 start to the season up against big-time rival, the Dallas Cowgirls. But now moving on to week number 2 against the Kansas City Chiefs. So this is a game that was kind of hard to predict. I was going back and forth on this game for, about an hour or so when predicting. And I did come to the conclusion, I'm going with the Birds. Now, I think in this game, you're going to Arrowhead Stadium. This is going to be, it's going to be tough. You're in week 2, and yeah, the NFL, they didn't waste any time with having a Super Bowl rematch. They didn't wait till usually halfway through the season. No, they went, nope, week 2. We're doing it week 2. This is when it's going to be. And yeah, I do see the Eagles coming out on top. I think it's going to be a tight game, and I think that sloppiness is still going to be there as the Kansas City Chiefs are trying to rebound and, prove that they can get back to the big stage again after that embarrassing loss to the Birds last year. But I do think, it's going to be a tight game, but I think a lot of people are going to be expecting Kansas City Chiefs to win because they want to get the revenge, and plus they're in Arrowhead, the loudest stadium in the NFL. So I do think a lot of analysts are going to be up against the Eagles for this. I already have seen it in other predictions. They're already up against the Eagles for this game. People thinking the Chiefs are going to win. I see the Birds defying odds and picking up a victory against the Chiefs in week number 2 to go 2-0. Moving on to week 3 against the Rams. The Eagles come back to South Philadelphia to go up against the Rams. So another rematch, as the Eagles, as you all know, in the playoffs beat the Rams. And I think this is going to be another tight game. This game could go either way, in my opinion. And this was another game. I was on it for about an hour. And it took me a little while to get these predictions together. But at the end of the day, I see the Birds coming up with the victory. And looking at this game, I feel like it's going to be whoever has the last possession. I see the Rams being extremely aggressive coming in here with Stafford, trying to. I feel like the Rams, this coming up season is going to be a hit or miss. I feel like they really want to make a push back to the playoffs. They feel like they can. But, if some things go wrong, I feel like their season could go right off course. So, the Rams are going to be coming in aggressive. They're going to be coming into Philly aggressive 100%. There's going to be no snow this time. I mean, I would think there'd be no snow it's only week 3. I mean, if there's snow, I think we got a problem. But, yeah, I think the Rams are going to be coming in tough, but it's going to be one of those games where whoever has the last possession is going to take the victory. And I feel like the Eagles, I feel like that if they have it last possession for the offense, I feel like they'll have it put a game-winning drive together and be able to overcome. And I feel like the Eagles will have that type of 3-0 start where, yay, they have a 3-0 start, but the games that they won, they didn't win the games comfortably. But I do think they'll get a 3-0 start. And now we move on to week number 4. So this is a game where I feel like the Eagles are going to get caught up, and I think this is going to bring them their first loss of the season against the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. As you can tell, it's white in the background. That means they're going to be away. When I look at this, the Eagles' history of playing in Tampa Bay is not great. I think there's also as well the humidity that you have to take into consideration. Last year, the feel on the field last year was about 109 degrees. It was absolutely nasty, and just knowing Tampa Bay Buccaneers, with that offense that, Baker Mayfield has been, grinding at. I feel like the Tampa Bay Buccaneers are a team that want to prove themselves, kind of just like the Rams. They had a great season last year, but fell short in an area that some people were like, I feel like they could have went farther. So the Buccaneers, I feel like, are going to be a type of an anxious team. And, you look at their stats last year, for their offense, they were in the top 3 area. By the end of January, they were rated to be at the top 3 of offenses in the league. So Tampa Bay Buccaneers, they're not a team to underestimate, and I feel like they will catch the Eagles. They're going down to Tampa Bay. I feel like the Tampa Bay Buccaneers will have the Eagles' number again and will hand the Birds their first loss of the season to make their record 3-1. But now we move on to week number 5. So this was another tough one, believe it or not, with the Denver Broncos. With Bo Nix back there, the Denver Broncos are a team that is really going to be, they're going to be, I think, contenders before you know it. Obviously they had an embarrassing loss in the first round last year where they got absolutely destroyed. But I feel like the Denver Broncos are going to be a team that is, going to try to explode back. And the Eagles, coming off of a loss against the Buccaneers, I feel like they're going to be coming into Philly, extremely, ready to go. And, with the Broncos being a younger type team, especially with, Bo Nix, who's obviously was a rookie last year, he's a good QB. But I feel like the Eagles' experience is going to, overpower that. I don't think the coaching staff will be exactly the happiest after, a week 4 loss to the Buccaneers. And I feel like the Eagles will rebound in a big way in front of the Philly faithful in South Philadelphia. And I think they'll come up with the victory against the Denver Broncos to get back on the winning side of things once again. But now moving on to week number 6, Thursday Night Football, another primetime game as the Eagles have, 7 primetime games this year. 7. Absolutely crazy. But now, what is my prediction for this? Well, I do think the Eagles will come out on top in North Jersey. The Giants, I don't really see anything scary happening. Their QB room right now, they got a good draft pick, but it seems to be, as it stands so far this season, I really don't see anything scary about the Giants. Maybe a little bit of their defensive line possibly, but for their offense, I still don't see a team that can really be scary in terms of putting points on the board. And, what the Eagles have with the run-pass, plays, I really think that they'll once again bury the Giants and be able to, get a little bit of a winning streak going again after, that loss to the Buccaneers. They pick up a win against Denver, and then they go to North Jersey to play the Giants. I think they'll pick up a good victory right there. Obviously, most people having them picking up a victory against the Giants. But now moving on to week 7 against the Minnesota Vikings. Now, this game, I feel like this is going to be a type of a surprise game for the Eagles. Now, I understand the Minnesota Vikings right now are kind of floating out there in a la-la land type. I mean, they don't really have a QB. Their offense is a little iffy. I mean, yeah, you have, obviously Justin Jefferson, but who's going to throw him the ball? I mean, it's a type of situation where their defense has talent as well, but, I mean, with their offense, it's going to be interesting. And I feel like the Eagles traveling to Minnesota, they don't necessarily always do well playing the Vikings in Minnesota. Obviously, I know they won their first Super Bowl there, but they always have had a little tendency of not playing the Vikings well. But I feel like the Vikings are going to be a team where you don't expect them to, play at the Eagles level, but I feel like they're going to be a team that kind of pops out and is just like, oh, hello, and just takes it away from them. Now, I mean, you can even go back to last year when the Eagles played the Carolina Panthers and the Cleveland Browns. Cleveland Browns and the Panthers were awful last year, but they were competitive. And you go and look right back at those games. You can do it right now as you're watching this Eagles chat. Go back and look at those games. The Eagles did not blow the Browns out or the Panthers out. They actually almost lost to both of those teams last year. So I have a feeling the Vikings may be one of those teams that just steps out of the woodwork and it's just like, hello, and just takes a W away from the Eagles, giving them their second loss. I feel like it's going to be an unexpected team, a team that you least expect really to kind of take a W away from the Birds, but I just see the Vikings really stealing one from the Eagles up there in Minnesota. But now, moving on now to week number 8, their second time playing the Giants, and yes, they only have a 1-week break of playing the Giants. Play the Giants, have a break, they go to Minnesota, and then they play the Giants again in week 8, and I see the Eagles coming up with the sweep against New York. I just think, again, New York, I really don't see what they have to offer. They don't really scare me in any way possible, and I don't think they scare any team in any way possible. They seem to be just floating out there again. And, I mean, do they have a chance to possibly be something in the future with an offense? Again, with the draft pick that they got this past draft, yeah, they have a chance, but I don't see them being scary at all, one bit, coming into this NFL season. I think the Eagles get the dub right there. But now moving on to week number 9. So the Eagles have a bye week at week 9. A little different from last year as the Eagles had an early bye week at week 5 last season, but right here, I think, the Eagles will get everything together and will come up with an explosive game on, yes, another primetime game, Monday Night Football against the Green Bay Packers, week number 10. I see the Eagles getting a victory here. Now, I know a lot of analysts out there have the Eagles actually losing this game, and, seeing the Eagles coming off of a bye, I mean, they had a disappointing loss, obviously, with going off of my predictions, having a disappointing loss to the Minnesota Vikings. That's not exactly sitting well, but yeah, you got the victory against the Giants going into the bye week. I still think, the Eagles are going to really be going over their issues, and I think they're really going to explode out of the bye week. And I think this is going to be another time where all the analysts and all the media is going to be going up against the Eagles because they're going up against the Green Bay Packers at, I mean, hey, you're going up against the Packers in Lambeau Field, one of the loudest stadiums in the NFL. I think there's going to be a lot of doubts against the Eagles. I think all the media is going to be going for the Green Bay Packers. It's going to be the same thing as last year. Yeah, the Packers, I think, are going to have this one. And then, of course, the Eagles after this play the Detroit Lions. So I think this is where everyone's going to start going after the Eagles again, saying, oh, here comes a bunch of losses for the Eagles. They're not going to win against the Packers. The Packers are young. They want to get back at them for beating them in the playoffs. The Packers are going to win this game. I think the Eagles are going to build off of that. They're going to come out of the bye week strong. They're going to build off, again, that negative energy that they receive every single season. Yeah, they won the Super Bowl, but they'll still get that negative energy. And I feel like the Eagles will feed well off of that, and they'll get the victory over the Packers coming off of the bye week on Monday Night Football. But now moving on to Week 11, Sunday Night Football. So, yes, it's a little bit of a shorter week, obviously. You play Monday night, then you play Sunday night against the Detroit Lions in South Philadelphia. Now, this game as well, I think it's going to be a dogfight. I really do. But I do see the Eagles coming out on top because, again, this is going to be a game where I feel like the odds are going to be slanted against them again. A lot of people are probably going to have Detroit winning it. I feel like Detroit is going to have another one of those seasons where they absolutely run over teams because, let's just face it, it was disappointing for Detroit last year. They were the ones that were expected to be the representative for the NFC in the Super Bowl last year, but they collapsed. And of course, our Birds were the ones that won it. But I feel like the Lions are going to be feisty, but I think the Eagles are going to have an answer for them. Again, I think the odds are going to be against the Birds like crazy. The media probably that entire week between the Monday Night Football game and the Sunday Night Football game are going to be talking bad about the Eagles. I feel like they're going to build off of that once again and have a big surprise in store for the NFL and the media. Once again, I think they pick up the victory against the Detroit Lions, especially up against an offense that can be spotty at times with, at times that being some of the best. As the Lions last year were the second best rated offense in the league, but they also would have their woes at times. And I feel like the Eagles will take advantage of some of those woes and capitalize. I think they'll pick up the W in a surprising way. But now moving on to week number 12, the Eagles' second and final time going up against the Cowboys in the regular season. I think the Birds pick up a victory right here. Now, with Dallas, just looking at their past, how they are with injuries, I really just see them kind of, once again, I feel like the Cowboys are just going to be a team floating around where they're around 500, but they will attack when necessary. I think it will be a tight game once again. I don't think the Eagles are necessarily going to be blowing out the Cowboys like they did last year, but I do think the Eagles are going to be able to pick up a win in Week 12 to kind of silence the Dallas crowd again. Again, I think it's going to be tight. I think you may see some interesting plays, some fumbles, possibly some interceptions thrown that game, but I do see the Birds coming up on top, being able to sweep the season series with the Dallas Cowboys. Now, moving on to week number 13, and this is going to be a Black Friday game against the Chicago Bears. I see the Eagles coming up with a victory against the Bears. The Bears right now showing improvement. I think they are finally going in the right direction. I think they've had an okay offseason so far, but I do see the Eagles coming out on top. They're going to be playing at home, obviously in Philly here with the green background. And I think they'll be able to get the job done against the Chicago Bears coming up. Now moving on to week number 14, Monday Night Football. Another primetime game for the Birds against the Los Angeles Chargers. Now, they will be traveling, obviously, across the country. You can see the white background. That means it's a away game. Be playing in SoFi Stadium. But, I'm going to give the Birds the victory here. We all know how the Eagles fans travel across, especially the SoFi Stadium. SoFi Stadium is taken over by pretty much every opposing team's fan base that plays there. But, again, I understand you have Harbaugh over there as well, Justin Herbert, who's been, proving himself. The Chargers, they made the playoffs last year. But same thing with the Denver Broncos. They got ran over in the first round of the playoffs. But that's another team that I think is really starting to develop faster and faster. And I think that, they'll give the Eagles a bit of a dogfight. But I do see the Birds coming out on top. This game, I see it. It could possibly be 50-50. But I do see the Eagles having the last word here. I think that the energy in that building and just the energy in general will be able to propel the Birds over the finish line. And if they are consistent with that offense, with their plays, as well with the consistency on the defense with your newcomers, Jahad Campbell, as well with your linebackers with Zach Baun. Hopefully he can have another great season. That defensive line to go after Herbert, to put pressure on Herbert, to fold him. I think the Eagles, as they stay consistent and they stay true to themselves, will come up with a victory over the LA Chargers. But now moving on to week number 15 against the Las Vegas Raiders in South Philadelphia. I think the Birds come up with a victory over the Raiders at home. I think it will be somewhat of, I'm not going to put it under the commanding victory. The Raiders, they got something going on there with Pete Carroll now back in the NFL again. I didn't think I'd see him back in the NFL. I thought he was gone for good, but great to see him back. I think the Raiders are going to compete with the Eagles a little bit, but I do think the Eagles will get the last laugh in front of the Philly faithful in South Philadelphia at Lincoln Financial Field. I think they'll come up with the victory over the Las Vegas Raiders. But now, moving on to week number 16. Crazy, we're already here. Look, Saturday, which will be the game time. Again, another primetime game for the Eagles. Will be on the road against Washington. I have them losing this game because Washington when I look at Washington, I see their season either being a hit or miss. And, what I mean by that is, they have the potential to be good. I mean, coming off of an incredible season last year, they were not expected to do that by any means. And, now that they're on film, I think some things will change this year. But I still think that they will be a talented team. Obviously, they brought in Deebo Samuel to try to help spoof up that offense, to give Jaden Daniels some other targets to really throw to. But I feel like, again, with Washington, it's either going to be a hit or miss season. But I'm predicting that they'll have still a pretty good season. I think they're a team that's really starting to build up to be something special. But again, I mean, they'll either be very, very good, or I feel like they'll just absolutely explode because, again, they're on film. So this is a team, extremely, I mean, we'll see what happens. But I do think they'll hand the Eagles an L. I think they'll surprise the Eagles. I think they'll come out and, play absolutely incredible in front of their faithful. And, I think it's going to be something where, the Commanders, you'll see them thrive. You'll see them thrive. You'll see them do their job. And, we'll kind of, push the Eagles back a little bit. But then I see the Eagles responding in Buffalo against the Bills, getting a victory, keeping Josh Allen still having no wins against the Eagles. Again, there's only one team, outside of the Bills that Josh Allen has not beaten, and that is the Philadelphia Eagles. So I do see them coming up with the victory in Buffalo. It's going to be a crazy game. I mean, week 17, there's probably going to be snow on the ground. It's probably going to be extremely cold, obviously, typical Buffalo weather, right? But I do see the Eagles, coming up with a victory there. I think they'll be feisty. I think they'll have a lot of anger coming out of that Washington game. And I think they'll, once again, I think there's going to be a lot of odds against the Eagles for this game. I think a lot of the media is going to be going up against them leading up to this game. And I think they'll be able to build off that energy and get a surprising victory. I'm not going for a close game. I actually think the Eagles will perform in a big way. And I think they'll have one of those big wins coming up in week 17 to really say, hey, you can keep denying us, but we're going to keep proving you wrong every single time. I think you'll see a statement win from the Birds in week number 17 against the Bills. And to finally edge things out, I see the Eagles getting a victory against the Commanders for the final game of the season. Now, no matter which way you look at this could either be two types of games, really. This could be a game where the Eagles have all their starters in to try to fend off the Commanders because, again, like I said with the Commanders, it could either be two types of seasons. It could be a season where, they are right on the Eagles' rear end and, one victory could decide the title of the NFC East. So this game right here could be either a game where all starters are in or it could be a game where you have all of your second stringers in. So, if you want to look at the side where if you want to look at the area, if the Commanders are extremely good and right on the Eagles' rear end, you'd probably have all your starters in. I'd be expecting a victory in South Philadelphia. But even say if the Commanders are not right up on the Eagles' rear, and by the time week 18 happens, say the Eagles already clinched the NFC East, I think, even with second stringers, they may still get the victory. Kind of like last year against the Giants where they had the second stringers in and they still beat the Giants. It could be something like that. But again, really looking at the Commanders, I think they can either be really good or since they're already on tape, they could be figured out a little bit and not have as good of a season as people are expecting. So it could be two types of Commanders team. I don't know what's going to happen there, but again, I think the Eagles will either way come up with the victory in week 18, finalizing a 14-3 season for the Birds. I think they have a chance to do like what the Chiefs did. I mean, the Chiefs have been, constantly incredible now for the past 4 seasons or so. And I think the Eagles can have another consistent year. If they are, again, key word right there, consistency. If they stay consistent with their play calls, their defensive strategies, with Vic Fangio, if he stays consistent, I mean, I just see an Eagles team that is able to repeat a great record once again. Some people are expecting them to go 11-5, some of these strange, 12 and whatever. Whatever. I think the Eagles have a great chance to really repeat a similar way as they did last year and, again, defy a lot of people's expectations. I think the media, once again, even though they won the Super Bowl, are going to be going up against them like crazy, and I think the Eagles will build off of that negative energy quite well. I also have them winning the NFC East once again to do it for the first time in 20 years for the NFC East to have a repeat champion. Yeah, it hasn't happened in more than 20 years. I know most of you already know that. But yes, 14-3 is my final prediction for this upcoming 2025 Philadelphia Eagles season. So that's all for me for this Eagles schedule prediction chat. And if you agree with my predictions, or if you don't agree with my predictions, leave a comment below. Say what you agree with me on. Say what you disagree with me on. What games would you change? Leave your comment in the comment section down below on this Eagles chat video. But that is all for me. Have a good rest of your May, ladies and gentlemen. And summer is right around the corner here in the Delaware Valley. Have a good one, folks. And as always, go Birds! Have a good summer, everybody, and I'll see you back here for some more Eagles chats coming in the off season. Have a good one.